Looks like YouTube is up to its old shit again. So if you're trying to catch my videos on YouTube, ended up here, YouTube did not allow me to upload the video. It just stops at the processing and never processes. It's at 0% processing before you can even upload a video. So, obviously I'm going to still be on BitChute, Odysee, and Rumble. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity, and shout out to Akims out there in the four quarters of the earth who claim this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Brakatum. So following up yesterday's video, which is in response to Apostle Tahar's video, that Pandora's box has been opened, that Donald Trump has opened Pandora's box, and he's not going to be able to close it this time. This is not going the way that they had wanted. They thought that they would just quickly install a new puppet government, and that this other guy that they dug up would just be able to go in there, and that Iran would surrender. And that didn't happen. They didn't get the regime changed. They killed the Ayatollah within minutes, and it didn't go the way that they had planned it.
On February 28th, Israel, backed by the United States, launched a large-scale air campaign against Iran. Within hours, the Persian Gulf was pulled into open conflict. States that had tried to remain neutral, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Oman, found themselves directly affected. The risk of escalation is increasing by the day, and new participants could still be drawn in. These strategic stakes are enormous. The Gulf contains some of the world's largest oil and gas reserves, and even limited instability here immediately shakes global markets. Traders expect energy prices to surge, shipping costs to rise, and inflationary pressure to spread far beyond the region. Washington deployed additional aircraft, air defenses, and naval forces, creating a concentration of power comparable to Operation Desert Storm, though without a ground invasion. The opening wave of strikes targeted command centers, radar systems, air defenses, and airfields. The aim was to paralyze Iran's military leadership and secure immediate control of the skies. Among the targets was Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. His compound was heavily bombed. Several senior commanders were reportedly killed in coordinated attacks as well. Strategic bombers struck underground nuclear and missile facilities, attempting to cripple Iran's long-term capabilities. However, the anticipated political collapse never materialized. Despite heavy losses at the top, Iran's system adapted quickly. Successors were appointed, command channels were restored, and military units continued to function. What looked like a decapitation strike instead revealed a state structure that had prepared for exactly this scenario. Iran's response unfolded gradually but decisively. Waves of missiles and drones targeted American and allied bases across the region, hitting facilities in the countries of the Gulf. Ports, logistics hubs, and airfields suffered damage, while several strikes landed close to civilian districts, underscoring that the conflict had no clear front line. Tehran's most powerful lever remains economic pressure. The Strait of Hormuz carries a significant share of global oil exports, and even a partial disruption threatens worldwide shortages. Tankers have already come under attack, insurance rates are climbing, and shipping traffic is slowing. For Washington, the objective is to force Iran back to negotiations and halt its nuclear and missile programs. For Tehran, success simply means endurance and the ability to impose costs on its adversaries. The broader consequences extend to China, which depends on Iranian oil, and Russia, which could profit from rising energy prices. What began as a regional confrontation is rapidly becoming a global turning point. The outcome will not only decide Iran's future, but may also reshape the balance of power for years to come.
And that's just it. There's a shift in the balance of power. And they bit off more than they can chew. And like everything else, though, they need a false flag to keep things going. And they already created one. And we'll just see how Saudi Arabia reacts to it. But, Tehran warns a false flag operation, says Israeli state undoubtedly seeking to widen war. The least of the flock shall draw them out. So they're going to try. I'm going to try to do a false flag, which they already... We'll see how this last one went. Iran Foreign Ministry spokesman says the Israeli regime has deliberately attempted to expand the scope of the current Israeli-American-initiated war against Iran and drag the region into a broader conflagration. And guess what? It'll eventually happen. The Zionist regime will undoubtedly seek to exploit the situation, expand the scope of fire, and carry out attacks of sabotage in regional countries in order to transform the war it has initiated together with the U.S. against Iran into a widespread regional conflict. Remarks come amid reports of arrests of Mossad agents in Saudi Arabia and Qatar as they are planning for bombings in the Arab countries. So, like everything else, though, there's still Mossad agents that didn't get arrested because, guess what? It happens to been already, in the report, and even Stu Peters' network had gone into it. So we'll play that one.
So while on the other side of the world, the United States prepares for war with Iran on behalf of Israel, of course. On on our side of the world, we're hearing a lot of hysteria and interventionist clamoring from the government media industrial complex as they try to convince all of us that Mexico is on fire and that an American intervention is the solution. An American intervention is the only thing that can save both sides of the border from this cartel-ridden destruction. So on Sunday, El Mencho was killed, the leader of the Jalisco cartel, and he was killed by Mexican authorities. And that, we are told, is what sparked this nationwide campaign of destruction that could spin up into a full-scale civil war as cartels go around allegedly executing civilians and engaging in rolling firefights with law enforcement and the Mexican military. Now,
Just to
initially,
recap,
there were reports that this was a direct U.S. military operation. Those reports have since been walked back a bit, but there's this new Reuters report which cites U.S. government officials, and it says that the United States was indeed involved in whatever is happening in Mexico. The Reuters exclusive reads, quote, "A new U.S. military-led task force specializing in intelligence collection on drug cartels played a role in the Mexican military raid on Sunday that killed the Mexican drug lord known as El Mencho," a U.S. defense official told Reuters. The Joint Interagency Task Force, which is known as Counter Cartel, and involves multiple U.S. government agencies, was formally launched last month with the goal of mapping out networks of drug cartel members on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border, U.S. officials said. The U.S. official who spoke to Reuters on condition of anonymity did not offer further details on any information that the U.S. military-led task force may have offered Mexican authorities. The official stressed that the raid itself was
and don't forget a friendly takeover of Cuba as well.
US officials speaking on condition of anonymity without referring specifically to the task force said that the United States
let's fast forward to...
And they're pretty inseparable from Mexico's Jewish president as well. Let's not forget that Claudia Sheinbaum took office only after these very same drug cartels killed every single one
Wrong video.
of their political opponents. All of them.
That sometimes happens. Slovakia. Slovakia. Sometimes when I pull up the VLC player, I can double click the wrong video. This is the video. I'm like, wait a minute, that what it said Sunday. Slovakia for that, but yeah, this is the video concerning everything primed for a false flag. So, as he goes into it.
Here on the Stu Peters Network. I'm your host, Frankie Stocks. Thanks to everyone for joining me for this evening's broadcast. We're kicking off another week here, and we have a lot of news to go over on this Monday night broadcast of the Based Report, because as I'm sure everyone is well aware of by now, over the weekend, the United States launched yet another illegal war for Israel in the Middle East. Israeli colonial Governor Trump, as we call him, they say that he's the president. He's more like the Israeli colonial governor. He came out over the weekend. He announced the United States is at war. No congressional approval. The American people don't approve of it, but the occupied White House approves of it. Israel demands it, and so now the United States is at war. Americans are already dying in the Middle East in this latest war for Israel. We are going to start off with that this evening here on the Based Report. That will take up the bulk of our coverage, various angles of what's happening right now in the Middle East, around the political scene in the United States as it relates to this war for Israel. But just let me re-impress upon everybody, just from the outset here, right from the get-go, this is yet another illegal war. Time and time again, this country has gone to war for Israel. This country has gone to war for the central banking class, for the central banking cabal, the crime syndicate that knows no borders, without congressional approval, unconstitutionally. We haven't even had a formal congressional declaration of war from this country since World War II. And here we are attempting to knock over. Iran is really putting up a lot of resistance. They're really putting up a fight. They killed the Ayatollah, but Iran hasn't just rolled over. The people of Iran haven't risen up and taken control of their government. Actually, it looks like they're doing quite the opposite. Again, we'll get to that here in just a few minutes as the coverage here rolls out. But what I want to get to here is, look, and the bottom line I want to draw before we jump into the coverage here is this is yet another illegal war, yet another attack on a sovereign nation. And again, it's being done at the behest of Israel. It's being done on behalf of Israel. It's being done on behalf of Israel's expansionist ambitions. They want to establish their Talmudic empire of Greater Israel. And to do so, they've got to get Iran out of the way. Iran stands in between Israel and Greater Israel, so they've got to get Iran out of the way. This has been decades in the making, and now here we are. It really looks like there is absolutely no turning back at this point. They're talking about sending in ground troops. Now, we will jump back into this here in just a moment. Again, there's a whole lot to talk about. Before we really get too deep into our coverage here, I want to remind everybody that the Base Report is brought to you by American Hemp Hub.
They're also going to find for false flag.
It was that puzzle piece. It arrived in Israel the end of last week, and really within a matter of hours, the United States was at war. And Israel was dragging us into it.
The least of the flock.
Israel's been behind this the entire time.
Yep.
This has never,
prophecy speaking.
never been a war for America. It's always been a war for Israel. Now look, we're going to jump more into that angle of things in just a moment. But there's something I want to preface it with. So, at this point, confirmed / what we could call admitted by the U.S. government, because they are really channeling the propaganda here. They know the American people don't support this war. They don't want to make it look as bad as it is. They want to make it look as shiny and as
from 560 to 630 today,
so
by the way.
Now they're telling us
losses on the U.S.
that 4
side.
U.S. troops are confirmed dead. There are other reports, and these aren't just Iranian reports. They're also coming out of Russia. So take it with what you will. But they're reporting that over 100, as many as 500 Americans are already dead or wounded.
630 now.
Strikes on U.S. installations around the Middle East. And now Trump and everyone else involved in the Trump administration, they are refusing to rule out ground troops. Ground troops have always been in the cards. Talk about the plan. Hey, ground troops have always been in the plan. Anyone who believed this was going to be some kind of air campaign, I don't know what to tell you. It just never was. And it's not going to be. They're telling us they won't rule out ground troops. That means ground troops are already on the table. That means ground troops are getting ready to go. The Iranians aren't just standing down. They're not rolling over. You know, there was this whole narrative when Trump announced the initial strikes. I'm doing this for you, the Iranian people. Never for the American people. We know he's doing it for Israel. But he tried to go with this whole hoax narrative. I'm doing it for the Iranian people. They want to get rid of their government. Now we're taking them out. Now they've killed the Ayatollah. Now he's saying, rise up. Rise up, Iranians. They're not rising up. They're not rising up, at least to overthrow.
They're standing together.
They're rising up and saying, avenge the Ayatollah. They're rising up and saying, we want to go to war with America. We want to go to war with Israel. Again, this has always been the plan. They've always known this is going to take a full-scale war, a full-fledged war, if we want to knock out Iran. And that's forming right now very, very quickly. Now look, there's some video footage that's come out. And we're going to go ahead and play it. I want to preface this by saying, as far as I've been able to determine, fed it through Grok, cross-referencing, etc., this is legit. There's a lot of footage that's going around. You know, Iranians celebrating, and then they end up being in London. They end up being in New York City. They end up being in Tel Aviv. They're waving Israeli flags, American flags, Iranian royalist flags. They're in D.C., right? This footage appears to be legitimate, appears to be authentic, coming out of Iran. And they're rallying and saying, war with America, we support the Ayatollah. This is going to be 2 separate clips, and we're just going to go ahead and play them back to back because it's really showing the same thing. Let's go ahead and roll them.
Oh, yeah. And we saw that yesterday. Let's fast forward a little bit, because they're either way.
On the cusp of getting a nuke. Iran is going to wipe Israel out. Iran is going to wipe the United States out.
Yep, to sell the
You've
war.
got to do something. It's never been about defending our country. It's always been about greater Israel. But look, I posted this clip over on X over the weekend. Again, this is 1996. This is a joint session of the U.S. Congress. And this is Benjamin Netanyahu. And here he is. He's grubbing his hands together like a happy little war merchant, like a happy little war profiteer coming into the United States and badgering and berating and saying, you're going to take out Iran for Israel. And now, 30 years down the road, he's getting what he wants. They've been at this, they've been pushing this for decades, for my entire life. They've been going down this road of one country after another. America picks them off, Americans are sent to die, and now here they are at the end of the road in the Middle East. It is time for that final showdown. It is time for that war with Iran that could turn the entire region into rubble so that Israel can steamroll it, Israel can fill in that map. But let's go ahead and play the clip.
Or to acquire nuclear weapons. This could presage catastrophic consequences, not only for my country, and not only for the Middle East, but for all of mankind.
Yep.
So again, that's 1996. They've been at this for a very long time. Trust the plan. This is the plan. One country after another. Knock them all down.
It ends with Iran.
To do it. They occupy the U.S. government, and they are using that occupied government to their own ends, to fulfill their territorial ambitions.
Yep.
But there is a slice of Americans who are so brainwashed, who are so bought in, who are so sold out. They've just sold everything out from underneath themselves, following the cabal off a cliff, that they actually support this. And I think the perfect encapsulation of the people who they follow, these mind control subjects, they follow Ben Shapiro, they follow Mark Levin, they follow Laura Loomer, and they also follow this little weirdo, Brylan Hollyhand. Do you remember Brylan Hollyhand? His fans, his followers, if they exist, if they're not just bots, those are the type of people who support the United States going to war with Iran. And Brylan Hollyhand, he was all smiles after Charlie Kirk was taken out to help pave the way for war with Iran, by the way. He was all smiles when Charlie Kirk was taken out because he thought he was going to slide into his position. He thought he was going to slide in and be the next Charlie Kirk, be the revamped, re-Zionist Charlie Kirk, re-Zionistified Charlie Kirk. That's who Brylan Hollyhand very obviously thought he'd be. It didn't work out for him. He was all smiles, though, on Fox News for his big audition. What, the day after Charlie Kirk was killed? And he was all smiles
then, like
again,
everything else,
in mind of creating chaos. That's not legit. That's not organic.
So you can see the rage.
The cabal's hand was on it the entire time. So whether these people are acting on their own accord, whether they're acting with intel handling from the U.S., from Israel, from someone else, when it comes down to it, Americans could be killed. The corporate media
Are being killed, and it's going to be worse.
Hey, Americans are going to be killed. There's going to be sleeper cells. They know. They brought them in. They established them. They handle them. They monitor them. They know where these people are. They know who these people are. And if they get the word, they'll start killing Americans. So look, this situation in Texas.
Yeah, that was a false flag.
Was that a sleeper agent? Was that just some guy? We don't know for sure.
It's a false flag.
But there's something very interesting that goes along with this. And I want to hit on it. I would be remiss if we didn't hit on this. Now, as first responders rushed to the scene of this bar in Austin, this is called Buford's Bar, however you pronounce that. I think it's Buford's Bar. As first responders rushed to the scene, as the ambulance came in, this Waymo self-driving vehicle stretched itself out across the road, just parked itself long ways across the road and blocked the road. Emergency responders couldn't get in. self-driving vehicle just blocks the way, total roadblock. Again, this is a Waymo vehicle. Now there's a video clip of this. It looks like law enforcement was able to eventually get the vehicle going. You can see they've got the door open. Somebody's jimmying something around, trying to get this vehicle, this self-driving vehicle, to get the hell out of the way so they can respond to the scene of this mass shooting. But let's go ahead and play this clip, and then I want to jump in to a little detail about Waymo on the other side.
So this is one of the false flags, you know, to make you think that there was a shooting. It was made to look like, yeah, there was a shooting, but it's a Mossad agent, guys, to be Iranian, right?
Predictive programming, it has been lying in wait. And now, boom, here it is, hitting the American people right in the face. This has been around for a long time. This has been a topic of conversation for a very long time. And I've got it teed up here. There is a trailer from a show from 20 years ago. I've mentioned this show on air before, and the show was called Sleeper Cell. And it was about Islamic sleeper cells operating on American soil, right under everybody's noses, just waiting for their time to strike. Let's go ahead and play the clip.
The enemy is here. 3 months of deep cover. You got any idea what they're planning? Whatever the plan is, it's going to be big.
Sleeper Cell is disturbingly realistic.
I'm putting together a team of holy warriors. Believers who are ready to strike without warning, without pity.
It looks more pointed than anything HBO has.
Because we're to say false flags, and then they're going to accuse us.
A stunning, eye-opening drama.
It's all about supporting a war. Because most people do not support the war.
Unlike any other program that's been produced for American television. Sleeper Cell. The threat is closer than you think.
So, like everything else, though, primed for a false flag. That's what that video's going into. But there's even more false flags because they've already done some other shit. And this is a disclaimer here. Because they are trying to say that Iran bombed the Saudi oil fields. I'm sure you heard about it. And this is coming from the Iran military. We do not bomb holy sites. Saudi attacked themselves. Urgent military commute. The enemy conspiring regarding Saudi oil. The General Command of the Armed Forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran valiantly denies the cheap propaganda claiming that our missiles struck oil facilities and wells of Saudi Arabia. This is a cowardly false flag operation orchestrated by the defeated Zionist enemy and great Satan. They initially bombed the Saudi oil infrastructure, hiding their own missiles within tonight's ongoing clashes, with the sole purpose of shifting the blame onto Iran and turning the regional nations against us. Our advanced missiles possess 100% precision on their military target. They do not stray. If we decided to target Saudi Arabia, we would do so openly. We have no need to hide it. The enemy is desperately trying to use the Arab nations, also known as the Dragons of Arabia, as a shield to hide from their punishment. But this cheap conspiracy will not hold us back a single step. You know, and pretty much though, that's what they're saying. That look, they're going after U.S. targets, and that's that. They are not at war with these other countries. They're at war with the bases that are there. And yeah, should the other countries get involved and directly attack, well, that's a whole other ball game. Now, Saudi Arabia, there's rumors that Saudi Arabia has joined the fight, but I haven't seen it yet. You know, you're just hearing rumors of war. Because we're in the time of wars and rumors of war, right? And this is the actual war, you know. Before, Saddam Hussein, years ago, said that when Operation Desert Storm happened, that was the mother of all battles, meaning the beginning of wars to come. And it was. You know, once they took out Iraq, well, there were 7 countries on the list. And it just got worse. General Wesley Clark had warned about this, that no, it got a lot worse. You know, here's 7 countries they want to take out. But ultimately, they wanted to end with Iran. Now, like everything else, though, they are lying to you about the numbers. It was 560 yesterday. Now it's 630. U.S. soldiers are being killed, and they're being killed a lot higher than just 2 here, 20 there. I can't reiterate that enough. But nonetheless, though, the military is turning against Trump, meaning that they do not support the war either. You already know about the flushing of the toilets on the one ship. So I'm going to play this video here a little bit. I mean, there's just, I have so many of them. So, hold on. So, Pandora's box is open, and a lot of people do not want to fight for the war. They don't want to go.
Well, folks, Donald Trump has another major problem on his hands. Not only is Iran spiraling out of control and the American people do not approve of what he's doing in the Middle East, but now we're learning that the military is somewhat turning on him. Sources close to the Trump administration say the mood inside the Pentagon is, quote, intense and paranoid. That doesn't sound like a cohesive unit that's backing the President of the United States to me, and there appears to be this rift that is opening between the White House and the military, the Pentagon. So I want to show you just
You're going to hear a lot of rifts, too.
And a couple of different ways in which the military is not happy with Donald Trump. Many of them appear to not be standing with what he's doing in the Middle East. But before I do any of that, please make sure to subscribe down below, drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about this story. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to rate the show 5 stars and follow along. I do this every day, and it goes an incredibly long way when you do. But without further ado, let's get into it. So I want to quickly provide you an update on the status of dead and injured Americans in the Middle East. We learned from U.S. Central Command this morning that another American has been killed. So the number went up from 3 to 4, which is absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, these families are getting the worst possible news imaginable, and Donald Trump just doesn't care. He was talking about the drapes at the White House earlier today. I'm not joking. The drapes on the windows, that's what his focus was. That's what he was talking about at the White House earlier today. So a 4th service member has died, and in addition to this, the amount of injuries has increased substantially. It went up from 5, as previously reported yesterday, to around 18 as of this morning. And I want to also point out that this 4th American troop who died was as a result of injuries. They succumbed to their injuries, unfortunately. But I want to show you just a couple of different things we're talking about these articles. So here's the Washington Post. They write that the U.S. troops killed amid Iranian counterattacks are fueling air defense fears. And it's not just that, but still, overnight military officials in U.S. operation centers tracked dozens and dozens of missiles and attack drones launched by Iran throughout the night, said another person familiar with the situation. So this is all still taking place as Donald Trump refuses to talk to the media about this. I mean, he hasn't answered questions in the past day about what's taking place in Iran, and yet, Americans are still being targeted in the Middle East. Americans are still dying. One person, or this person who spoke to the Washington Post, said Iran is in full retaliation. The vast number of retaliatory strikes and the array of sites being targeted, including non-military sites in Arab nations across the Middle East, is concerning. After so much of the regime's top leadership was killed, this person continued, officials are worried about the command and control of those weapons, the person said. Inside the Pentagon and among some members of the Trump administration, there was deepening concern Sunday that the Iran conflict could spiral out of control, said people familiar with the situation. I don't think it's a matter of if it could spiral out of control. I think it is actively spiraling out of control. It is so obvious that Donald Trump has no plan for what's next. Like, great, we took out the Ayatollah. I don't think anybody is sad about that. Nobody wants the Ayatollah to be in power. The regime in Iran is repressive, authoritarian. They have done awful things to Americans in the Middle East, people in Iran, people in the broader region. But what's next? Right, you took out the Ayatollah, now you have this power vacuum. What's next? Who's next? Who's going to lead Iran? What kind of government is going to lead Iran? The Trump administration is saying that it's regime change, but it's also not regime change. They just can't decide. But here's where it gets worse for Donald Trump. One person said that the mood inside the Pentagon is intense and paranoid. There is anxiety among senior leaders that the fighting will extend for weeks, further stressing limited U.S. air defense stockpiles. People familiar with the situation said, quote, "There's concern about this lasting more than a few days." I don't think it's even a question of if this is going to last a few days. I think this is absolutely going to go on for weeks. I don't think people have fully absorbed yet, what that has done with stockpiles. They added, noting that it often takes 2 or 3 air defense interceptors to ensure that an incoming missile is stopped. And this is another major problem. How do we restock our military ammunition around the world, in the Middle East, and of course here in the United States as well? How do we do that? A lot of military officials are stressing that in the event that, for example, let's just say hypothetically, China goes after Taiwan, or Russia expands their operation in Ukraine to Europe, the United States is now depleted right now, and so far Trump has no plan to restock those munitions that we have now used in Iran. So this is a major concern among many in the military that they are actively flagging. Here's another article from the New York Times that talks about this as well. Trump says the war could last weeks and offers contradictory visions of the new regime. And again, there are problems coming from the military. The interview with Trump seemed to reflect the degree to which
morale is low.
By the way, it's a phone interview, to which his administration remains uncertain about how the next few weeks will unfold, both on the battlefield and in the creation of a replacement government in Tehran. But he insisted the Pentagon retained plenty of forces, missiles, and bombs to sustain the military assault if we have to. Asked how long the United States and Israel could keep up this level of attack, he responded, well, we intended 4 to 5 weeks. It won't be difficult, Trump said. We have tremendous amounts of ammunition. We have ammunition stored all over the world in different countries. He made no mention of the Pentagon's concerns that the conflict could further deplete reserves that military strategists have said are critical to retain in scenarios like a conflict in Taiwan or Russia incursions into Europe. So Donald Trump is kind of telling the military to kick rocks. They're actively raising concerns. They're speaking to media outlets about, I don't know what this does to our stockpile around the world. It could kind of leave us depleted and maybe perhaps in a vulnerable position. And Donald Trump's response to them is, no. Actually, no. We have so many ammunition
exactly.
around the world. We're fine.
Downplaying it.
There's no concern. The Pentagon is completely wrong. There's this rift forming where Donald Trump is telling the media that the military is wrong. The media is saying, hey, we have some concerns here. And so far, there seems to be no resolution on the matter. In addition to this, Trump offered a very different model of what the transition of power in Iran might look like, referring repeatedly to his experience in Venezuela after he ordered a Delta Force to seize Maduro. What we did in Venezuela, he said, I think is the perfect scenario. His answer implied that what worked in Venezuela would work in Iran, a nation with about 3 times the population and a military and clerical leadership that has ruled with increasing repression since the 1979 revolution. Over the past several weeks, Trump has repeatedly brought up Venezuela as the model of a successful operation.
You see,
replicate
it's unfolding. Everything we said,
that'd be more
that his ego would be so high after Venezuela.
He's been told by his advisors, and I imagine people in the military, that the vast differences in culture and history made it virtually impossible to apply the strategy used in Venezuela, in which the existing government was kept in place after it agreed to take instructions from Washington and try to replicate it in Tehran. Nonetheless, Trump appears enamored of using a Venezuela-like model in Iran. Again, Donald Trump is telling the military to kick rocks. I think this rift is just so obvious, and it's becoming clearer by the day, where Donald Trump is saying, I want to replicate Venezuela, which makes absolutely no sense for a country all the way around the world, a completely different culture, completely different makeup of people. But I want to replicate Venezuela. I want Iran to take commands from Washington, D.C., from us. I want to basically run it de facto style.
And they've got a puppet they want to put in there, but they have to take out the regime in order to do that.
It's all for countries around the world, that if you just topple their leader, they all suddenly get in line and are like, hey, this is great, we love it. Let's just do this in every country. That makes no sense. And it's a complete misunderstanding of foreign policy. It's a lack of understanding on foreign policy, which is not exactly surprising from Donald Trump, but his military is telling him, don't do this, this is not going to work, and he's doing it anyway.
Exactly. He's opened Pandora's box, just following up from yesterday. And just like everything else, if they die, that's just the way that it is. People die all the time in war. That's just the way that it is. And like everything else. So this is just kind of the sentiment. The people ain't happy about their leader, the Ayatollah, being killed. And they also killed the previous president, President Pezeshkian. Ahmadinejad. They killed Ahmadinejad, which was an Iranian president as well in the strikes. So, yeah, I can see them rising and wanting a new leader, right? Well, that's not with this, and this is just coming from Press TV, which is their most known network. Now, let me play this. Here it is.
But here's the thing. The rules of the game, they changed. Because America isn't sailing into open water anymore. They're sailing into something Iran has spent decades preparing for. For years, everyone kept asking, can Iran actually threaten a U.S. carrier? But honestly, that question is kind of outdated. The real question is way scarier. How many layers of Iranian firepower would that carrier have to survive before it even gets close to Iranian shores?
It's already retreated.
Let's break down that kill web Iran has built. At the very top, you have the headliners, the Fatah 1 and Fatah 2 hypersonic missiles. We're talking speeds up to Mach 15 with flight paths that zigzag so unpredictably, they're designed to embarrass even the most advanced missile defenses. But beneath those, you've got the classics. Iran has spent years developing anti-ship cruise missiles like the Nur, Qadir, and Qadir. These things skim the sea at low altitudes, hugging the waves so they pop up on radar at the last possible second. Then you have the Abu Mahdi, which stretches the map. With a range of over 1,000 kilometers and an AI-assisted seeker, it can launch from deep inland and still hunt down a moving target at sea. And if the cruise missiles don't get you, the ballistic hammer drops. Missiles like the Halifax fly up into the sky and plunge down almost vertically at supersonic speeds. Try intercepting that. Meanwhile, the Hormuz missiles are designed to home in radar emissions. Basically, they go straight for the eyes of those advanced Aegis warships. And the Zulfiqar Basir, that pushes the danger zone 700 kilometers out into the Gulf of Oman, into waters the U.S. once assumed were safe. But the craziest part, the surface is only half the story. Beneath the waves, Iran has kilo-class submarines, tiny Qadir midget subs that are hard to detect, and Nahang ambush hunters. They've got mine layers, and they've got the Hood, one of the fastest torpedoes in the world. If that thing locks on, running isn't really an option. So here's the bottom line. A U.S. aircraft carrier entering waters near Iran isn't operating with assumed superiority anymore. It is entering a battle space where the air, the sea, and the undersea all carry a credible threat. The old era of American naval invulnerability near Iran, yeah, that era is over. Okay, let's set the scene.
Exactly.
It's not the most powerful machine on the planet, a U.S. aircraft carrier, but here's the thing. The rules of the game
have changed.
Because
the rules of the game have changed, and it's a lot worse now. Like everything else. So this is Scott Ritter, who is a general. He was a general as well, and he's got expertise on this subject. Pandora's box is open, and it can never be closed again.
We're at war. It's a regional war. It's a war that is going to have consequences that will impact the American public. The Strait of Hormuz has been closed. This is unprecedented, and it is the beginning of an economic phase of this conflict. This is also a conflict.
That'll usher in the MOTB, by the way.
Those who started it didn't understand what they were getting into, and Iran has been fully prepared for this eventuality. The decapitation strike did not decapitate. The Iranian people are not in the streets demanding the overthrow of the government, just the opposite. They're in the streets rallying in support of the government. And the war plan has gone awry from the start. This was a war that the Joint Chiefs of Staff told the president, we don't have the resources to fight and win. They tinkered with the war plan anyways, and they went forward. But when you're trying to accomplish a lot with limited resources, if the war plan goes out of sync up front, which this one has, remember, this mission that we're on is predicated on decapitation. We have lost this war.
In 10 hours. In about 10 to 12 hours.
We lost this war the moment we fired missiles against Iran because we don't have a plan that can be implemented, and we are going to run out of ammunition. This is what the generals told. The admiral that was fired from the Joint Chiefs of Staff told the president, we don't have the resources to do this war. If you do this, we're going to lose. Well, first of all, there's some talk out of the U.S. military that the initial phase of this campaign is a 4-day campaign, day and night. So if that's the case, what we're going to see is just nonstop sorties flying into Iran to follow through on regime change, on decapitation, to suppress Iranian security targets, to take out air defense, and to suppress ballistic missile launch capability, but according to the president, also to strike ballistic missile production capacity. There are various facilities near Tehran that appear to be being targeted by the United States and by Israel. And so we're going to be basically seeing, 72 hours of, 4 days, 24, 48, 96 hours of strikes. And then there ostensibly would be a pause in which, the United States would be hopeful that the Iranian people would rise up and remove their government power while we rearm, re-equip, and look for new targets. But I think we've got this completely wrong, because it doesn't appear that the Iranians are balking, are hurt, are confused, are stumbling about. They are responding in a very forceful manner, and as you pointed out, they haven't used their best. I think tonight there's some video evidence that they may have fired a couple of their more advanced missiles. We shall see. But the point is, they have very advanced missiles. and these missiles will do extreme harm on the targets that they're aimed at. And Iran, I do believe, will be victorious in this war. The United States is going to run out of ammunition. When that happens, we will have to withdraw from this conflict because we have no ability to continue this conflict, and we lose all leverage over Iran at that point in time. Israel is going to be physically defeated in this conflict. This is a war of existential proportions. I don't believe that the United States is going to be able to pick up the phone and have this war stop. I believe Iran has already gotten the upper hand and will continue to apply force effectively against Israel, the United States, and the Gulf Arab states, to the point that when a diplomatic solution is arrived at, and I do believe that Russia and China are going to be pushing for a diplomatic solution, peace will break out, but peace that is acceptable to Iran, which means that for the first time, people are going to have to sit down, shut up, and listen to the Iranians and what they want, and they don't want a nuclear weapon. The Iranians are smart. They've been preparing for this conflict since 2005. Throughout Iran, there's a system of caverns dug into the side of mountains and hills where this material has been evacuated. There are alternative evacuation sites. Israel's talking about hitting, what did you say, 500 targets? Or
500 targets was 200 aircraft, 500 targets.
Right, but the Iranians have created an additional 1,500 targets by dispersing this, and they will continue to disperse. Now we're in an intelligence game where you have to collect intelligence and evaluate intelligence and identify targets, and then put together a target strike package and strike the targets before the enemy actually re-evacuates. The Iranians aren't going to be staying in one place. They're going to be moving. Unless Israel controls the skies for 24 hours, they won't be able to interdict. This is a losing proposition for Israel. Iran was ready for this. And the important thing is that in being prepared for this, they apparently prepared in a way that didn't tip off their preparation to Israel and the United States, because we would not have launched this strike unless we had a high degree of confidence that the targets we were hitting would be in fulfillment of the mission that we put forward. We wouldn't waste all of these extremely high value, very expensive precision munitions in the first wave of the attack just to strike empty buildings, because that, it appears, is what we hit. A bunch of empty buildings with a significant amount of collateral damage for Iranian civilians, but almost zero impact on the target sets that we're trying to eradicate. This is a war of choice. It's not a war of necessity, and therefore it makes it an illegal war of aggression. And I'll just pound this point home all over again, because people hear that term and they roll their eyes. This is what we voted for, they said. I don't really give a damn what you voted for. What I care about is the Constitution of the United States of America, and this war operates in total contravention of the Constitution. If Iran was threatened by Israel, who has nuclear weapons, Iran would be able to reconsider this fatwa and under extraordinary circumstances determine that Iran could have a nuclear weapon. The guy who was making that argument is now the senior Islamic cleric in Iran, you stupid idiots. The man who believes that Iran has a right to have a nuclear bomb is now the guy that interprets the Islamic faith for the Islamic Republic. And the people of Iran are in the streets saying, this is what we want. How stupid can you be? Well, the answer is extraordinarily stupid. And so now we see the reality. This Islamic Republic is not built on the backs of one man. It's built on the back of a constitution that is being applied as we speak. No deviation from the Constitution whatsoever. Things are going exactly the way the Constitution says it must happen, and on the backs of the faithful. And you just empowered the faithful to say, we need nuclear weapons. Now, we're in a very dangerous position, but let's continue down the path of regime change for a second. You see, regime change is a double-edged sword. Donald Trump unsheathed it, along with Israel, and sought to wield it against the Iranians. But it cuts both ways. Donald Trump lost the war on day one, the first 6 bombs that fell on Iran. He lost the war, which means there will be regime change in the United States before there's regime change in Iran. Donald Trump's cult of personality will not survive the midterm elections, because in order to win the midterm elections, Donald Trump needed to deliver a very quick, relatively bloodless war to the American people, one that accomplished what no other American president in 47 years has been able to do. But instead, he's going to go down the path of yet another failed president who's got the United States involved in a long, drawn-out war that we won't win. We will lose. We don't know how many lives we will lose, but it'll be devastating. The Iranians will not buckle. There will be no popular uprising in Iran to overthrow the regime. Ali Khamenei is a martyr now, a martyr of the significance of Hussein himself, a martyr that in the eyes of the Shia faithful is the equal to Ali. That's why the last posting on the
on his X account invoked Ali, a symbol of defiance. And so the Shia faithful will rally around Ali Khamenei, a man who was, 88 years old at his death? 86. Had disease. His biggest fear was to die a fragile old man. He said he wanted to go out a martyr. People keep saying, why did he stay in his residence, knowing what was going to happen? Why did Hussein lead the charge against the unfaithful in the Battle of Karbala? Because he chose martyrdom. He chose martyrdom as a way of exposing the lack of Islamic adherence on the part of Umayyad caliphs. He chose martyrdom to protect his followers who were seeking to flee from the battle. Ali Khamenei, this frail old man, didn't want to die hiding in a bunker, allowing his legacy to be tarnished by those who diminished him through that action. Ali Khamenei sat down with a circle of fellow martyrs. Everybody at that meeting knew what was going to happen. And they knew that through their sacrifice, they would elevate the cause of the Islamic Republic back into the heart and soul of the Iranian people, and that is manifest today. Ali Khamenei chose martyrdom. We gave it to him because we are truly the stupidest people on the planet. We don't know anything about the people that we seek to engage in combat with. We disrespect their faith. We disrespect everything about them. And what's going to happen has been actually preordained by American admirals. Trump fired the director of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for having the temerity to say, we don't have enough ammunition to finish this job. We're going to start something and we can't finish it. If we don't get this quick revolution in the streets and the Iranians decide to resist, then we will run out of ammunition before they run out of resistance. And then we lose this war. And when we lose this war, the American people will be awoken to the reality that Donald Trump is not the president of peace, but he is a pro-Israeli warmonger that put Israel above American interests, sacrificed the lives of Americans, slaughtered innocent Iranians. These dead school children will become sort of the poster child of the perfidy of the United States, who once again used diplomacy as a means of setting up a surprise attack. We will never be trusted by anybody again, nor should we. But this is the end of Donald Trump. His regime will collapse in the midterm elections. He will spend the last 2 years of his presidency being impeached. And if this war goes bad enough, maybe being convicted and being hauled out of the White House in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, because that is his fate. Regime change. This is going to be one of the most successful regime change operations in the history of regime change operations, but is literally a self-inflicted wound by Donald Trump on his own political legacy. Iran is being pounded by the most technologically advanced militaries in the world. The Israeli military, which achieved its technological prominence because of American weaponry, and the United States, which, of course, when you pour in nearly $1 trillion a year, or 1.5 trillion if this budget goes through, you better have advanced weapons. And so we are inflicting death and destruction on Iran as we speak. But Iran is a very large nation, 4 times the size of Iraq, 90 million population, that have now threatening to bomb people to death in a nation that reveres martyrdom is really the dumbest path to take. As you said, Ali Khamenei opted to stay at home, do his business from home, together with people who believe the same thing, because they are leaders. They are going to lead by example, and the example for Iran to set right now is their willingness to absorb the damage inflicted by, the evil modern-day Umayyads, Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, because they believe in the end that they will emerge victorious. So we are blowing things up. But the Iranians are responding, and they're responding in a way that took everybody off guard, because I think most people thought that Iran would respond directly to Israel, and then there would be a sort of an escalation ladder taking place as they started to strike one American base, then another, in an effort to get the United States and Israel to the negotiating table. But Iran literally just went out and hit everything. And even the Trump administration, like, we didn't expect this to happen. They've hit us in a way that nobody's ever hit us before, and they're sustaining that. Yes, we are blowing things up, but if we don't understand that for the last 20 years, Iran has been preparing for this very scenario, that Iran understands better than we do what we do, they will take losses, but they will continue to launch, as we're seeing now, and they have prepared stockpiles that are successfully hidden, sequestered, spread out, that they'll be able to draw upon for months. We, on the other hand, will run out of ammunition in weeks. And again, we look at regime change, just to look at coming at it from a targeting perspective. Again, for the ignorant masses in your chat and everybody else's chat, I used to do this for a living, so shut up and listen.
We prepare a strategic air campaign of this nature. We have objectives that we want to reach. We say that by this period of time we should achieve this results, then we move to this and that, and it's sort of a campaign of sequential events that build up on one another. You get to the culminating moment, which is the collapse of the enemy that you were targeting. We have a finite amount of resources, so we take these resources and we allocate them accordingly. We put them on, for instance, the first phase, the first goal objective. To achieve that, and then we take these resources and reapply them, part of a planned process to achieve the next and the next and the next and the next. But what happens, and it happened in the Gulf War, where, for instance, we had resources, 2 F-15E Strike Eagle squadrons that were applied to one of the primary phase 1 objectives of suppressing Iraqi ballistic missile launch capability in western Iraq. And we send them out to strike fixed-arm launchers and hit up mobile launch sites. And according to the plan, we were supposed to have achieved all this on the second day. First day of primary strikes, second day of restrikes, and then we have wipe that target deck off and move these squadrons over to their next mission assignments, which await them outside of Basra and outside of Baghdad. But we didn't destroy anything. The missiles kept launching. So we had to keep these F-15E squadrons on target and reinforce them, diverting resources away from the other target decks to go down this route, and it degraded the strategic air campaign. But at that time, we had sufficient resources. We had a lot of airplanes, a lot of bombs. So we just lengthened the strategic air campaign and we rode out this problem set. Here, we have a strategic campaign that is crippled from the start by insufficient resources. The admiral that was fired said, we don't have enough airplanes and we don't have enough bombs, so we can't do what you want us to do. But the others came in and said, no, we've planned this very carefully. We are going to kill a bunch of people. The first 6 bombs are going to kill Khamenei and 40 people, and that will cascade the collapse of the regime, and then we move to suppression of the security forces, and then we achieve regime change, and we win, and Trump can do his stupid little Trump YMCA moronic dance. So they fired a whole bunch of missiles to achieve regime change. If you heard what we just said, I hope the audience is listening. The regime has not collapsed. It has fallen on the Constitution, and the president of Iran sits at the head of a 3-person succession committee until they elect a new supreme leader. There is the Assembly of Experts, which, by the way, is democratically elected. I want to remind all you haters out there that Iran is probably the most successfully functioning democracy in the Middle East. And they elect the Assembly of Experts, who then, through the will of the people, monitor the supreme leader and will select the new supreme leader. And the regime continues. It's there. It's viable. It is functioning. We failed in regime change. So all those resources that we used up on day 1 are gone. And now we have to reallocate resources to continue hunting down the regime. And so we have already put ourselves behind the 8 ball. And we're chasing something that we'll never catch up to because we don't have time. We don't have time because we don't have the resources. We don't have the ammunition. We're burning through our ammunition at rates that we'll never be able to replenish. And it's not just what we're doing against Iran, what Iran is doing against us. By continuing to fly these attacks, they are sucking up resources. Over 1,000 Iranian missiles were launched on day 1. The average expenditure rate for the air defense is 3 to 4 missiles per missile. That means that we have burned through 3,000 to 4,000 interceptor missiles. And the missiles are still flying. The Iranians have planned a campaign that will last months. We have the ability to sustain this for maybe another week, and then we run out of missiles. We got nothing left. Nothing. Genius geopolitical analyst.
Die, Esau, die.
That means we have nothing in the Pacific.
See how this is music?
China decided they wanted to take Taiwan right about now. We got nothing. All our cruise missiles are being chewed up. All our interceptor missiles are gone. What would happen? I mean, Russia's not going to do it, but if Russia wanted to make a move on Europe, we got nothing. Nothing. This is the stupidity of this. We gambled everything to achieve what? To make Israel happy.
Turned down for
the
what?
Iranians had agreed to. There's a wonderful post on X written by one of the diplomatic advisors to the ruler of Oman, who was managing this negotiation. And he talks about what had been accomplished. And he said that the deal that was agreed to by the Iranians got rid of their nuclear enrichment program in everything but name only. Meaning that if you wanted to ensure that Iran would never have a nuclear weapon, this was the deal. This would have been Donald Trump's great peacemaking diplomatic victory. Peace through strength. Threaten an attack. Get the Iranians at the table and get them under pressure to agree to something so fundamental that you could stand up legitimately and say, there will never be an Iranian nuclear, because there are no sunset clauses in this, unlike the JCPOA, which aged out. This one is permanent forever. And the Iranians had agreed to it. It was in writing. They were moving to a signing ceremony. This guy talks about how he ordered 12 Mont Blanc Meisterstück pins for the signing ceremony at $620 each. But we weren't serious about the nuclear program. We're using it as a subterfuge to do the Israeli-pleasing regime change operation, which has now failed.
but it not only failed in terms of failing to get rid of the regime, but that nuclear program could very well become active. I want to ask all the morons in your chat, what is the status of the 60% enriched uranium that we failed to destroy in Donald Trump's first attack against Iran? We didn't know where it is. We don't know where it is. Do you think we're getting it today? And if we don't get it, do you think Iran may have, over the period of time, sequestered away enough final manufacturing capacity to convert that into at least 5 or 10 nuclear bombs the size of Hiroshima? But you don't know, do you? Because you're stupid. You're as stupid as the president is. I'm sorry, man, I shouldn't be insulting your audience or any audience, but I'm so fed up because it's because of the ignorance of people like this that the president believes he has legitimacy to do what he's doing. We have stupid people out there that don't think through the problem, who are ignorant of the problem. And, I'm just fed up with them because, we are looking at a world that's going to hell. The defeat of America, as pleasing as it may be to, the pro-Iranian community out there, if you're an American patriot, you can't want this. You cannot be seeking this. If you're somebody like me who actually took the oath, swore allegiance, put on the uniform, and went to war for my country, you can't celebrate anything that results in the death of the men and women who put on that uniform. And yet they're dying.
In the ground war.
The Defense Department
will eventually commence.
That's what it is. It's not.
Because they'll be out of missiles anyways. They'll be out of ammo.
But the Defense Department has acknowledged at least the deaths of at least 3 American servicemen they said in combat operations against Iran. We don't know if they died on the ground in Iran because there's ongoing raids taking place. It's outside the scope of what most people are talking about. Special operation forces are on the ground. I think there was an attempt to raid one of those underground missile cities that didn't go well, and we had to withdraw. So there's this activity. We can say, like I do, that I don't want the Iranian regime to collapse. But I will never cheerlead in favor of the death of any American at all, ever. And yet that's the situation we're in right now, where Americans are dying. And then again, how can you cheerlead for what America's doing? Because one of the first missiles that struck Iran hit a secondary school, and over 100 children, schoolgirls, ages between 6 and 12, are dead. Imagine being a mother who sent their children to school that morning because you believed there would be peace because the United States was engaged in a legitimate negotiation. Marco Rubio announced he was traveling to Israel on Monday, and therefore, of course, there can't be a war if Marco Rubio is traveling. So in good consciousness, he said, I'm sending my children to school so they can become educated, become part, have a brighter future. And you send them to school only to have an Israeli missile hit that school and kill virtually everybody inside that school. You can't celebrate this. You can't celebrate any aspect of this. And yet here we are, because of the stupidity of a president who is guided by the stupidity of his political faithful, who are as ignorant as the day is long about the world we live in.
So, like everything else, everything's about to change. It's a Pandora's box that can never, ever be closed. I know that one's a little bit lengthy, but I mean, there's just tons more coming out, And this is Scott Ritter goes on to, of course, it was on George Galloway, who usually goes into the economy. The repercussions of this is far greater, as I'll play some of this too.
The one and only Scott Ritter joins me now. Scott, thanks for doing this. I know you're in very great demand. So I'll just ask the obvious question. It looks to me like the war isn't going well for the invaders. How does it look to you?
Well, being able to look at this conflict now as it's entering, it's soon to enter its 3rd day.
4th day now.
I can make the following assessment. This is a regime change conflict that the United States and Israel lost when they
already
fired
lost
the first 6 missiles into Tehran, striking the residence of Ali Khamenei and killing the supreme leader of Iran, the second most important man in the Shia faith in the entire world after Grand Ayatollah Sistani in Najaf, Iraq. Donald Trump, when he announced this operation to the American people, said that basically our pummeling of Iran was designed to terminate the regime, decapitate the regime, suppress the regime, and create the opportunity for the Iranian people to rise up and take matters into their own hands. Today, the Iranian people are rising up and taking matters into their own hands. The streets are filled, not with crowds shouting death to Khamenei, but crowds extolling the newest martyr, a man who gave his life in the service of his country, in service of his faith. We have lost this war, the we being the United States. We being the United States and its controlling masters in Tel Aviv, Israel. The war is lost. The regime will not be toppled. The regime will not be changed. And the Iranians will resist long after the United States and Israel have depleted and spent their forces, run out of ammunition, and will be compelled to sue for peace.
So
like everything else, though, you see how well that's going. And George Calloway, he does a lot of videos, George Calloway. And here's a simulation of what's going to happen. And there's already 630 soldiers killed. Yesterday was 560. You think the U.S. is being honest with the people, telling them that, we only lost 2 or 3 here, maybe 20 there. Group of soldiers' coffins has returned to America. This video simulation created to reflect the news report only. Some posts and visual materials may be generated using artificial intelligence for illustrative purposes. So like everything else, though, there's a little snippet, but body bags are coming out, and eventually it's going to catch on. And this is not like Iraq. And they're talking about a ground war after they run out of ammunition. And they'll exhaust their ammunition in just about a week. I mean, this is already day 4. You got 3 more days, right? I mean, that would be a whole week, because, 4 more days, right? 4 more days is the 7th of this month. Most Americans disapprove of the war against Iran. Poll shows even more of them think Trump is too willing to use military force. Reuters polls conducted just as the U.S. and Israeli state began the war against Iran on Saturday found that most Americans disapprove of the act, and significant number most believe Donald Trump is far too willing to use military force. Well, it's just the way that it is. I mean, pretty much. When asked if Trump wields too much military force, 56% of all respondents agreed. Among Democrats, the figure climbed to 87%, while among Republicans it was 23%. Yeah, because they think he can win a war. Trump campaigned to end all U.S. wars, not start new ones, and has already proclaimed himself the peacemaker, this man of peace, deserving the Nobel Peace Prize. The U.S.-Israeli war against Iran threatened to spiral out of control into a wider regional war. Iran targeted both the Israeli state, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, in retaliation. U.S.-Israeli strikes killed Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, as well as a slew of other Iranian leadership figures, including an ex-president of theirs. As of Monday morning, this is what they're officially saying, 4 Americans have announced killed in Iranian strikes against U.S. military base in Kuwait. 3 F-15s were downed in Kuwait. Qatar shot down 2 fighter jets approaching from Iran. And rockets were launched at a British military base in Cyprus. In D.C., 1 U.S. gallon of petrol costs a little over $3.10, which is approximately 3.785 liters. National average is currently $2.99 per gallon. I wish you could see that here in Fuckfornia. Fuckfornia is way higher. These prices are going to change. Because, he's got that 6 cents per mile tax already. And he's talking about an additional 2 cents per mile tax. Piece of shit fucking Newsom, because of this so-called go green policy, right? So they're really sticking it to you over here. But like everything else, though, Trump, he's downplaying it. He's downplaying everything. And he's definitely downplaying the numbers and the fact that they're not winning the war that they've already lost. You're hearing it from a military expert, Scott Ritter, that they've already lost the war once they started it. Trump dismisses negative polling against Iran attack. The president said he doesn't care about public opinion. Well, he shouldn't, right? Because he got his war. He needed it. And if people die, that's just the way that it is. He loves it. He loves war. They're good at war. They're warlike people. Talking about Esau Edom. And I remember Carlin saying that. I think the polling is very good, but I don't care about polling. I have to do the right thing. I have to do the right thing. This should have been done a long time ago, Chuck told the New York Post. Yeah, the right thing to do is to step down. You know, you talk about regime change in Iran, we need a regime change over here. I've heard that said as well. Iran rejects Trump's ceasefire offer. Oh, that's just another thing, is that, see, like everything else though, they already were being chased off. And I just had a dream a couple days ago about tornadoes hitting. There were tornadoes everywhere. Now, I wasn't affected by the tornadoes, but I seen everybody else was. But in this dream, the tornadoes were coming. They didn't even know where they were coming from. You couldn't predict where the tornadoes were coming from, obviously. I believe that probably has something to do with the war, because I told my wife about it, and she said, well, isn't that dealing with the war? What's going on? Like I said, it wasn't really a nightmare. It was just something that I saw in my dream. You know, so I didn't even treat it as a nightmare because I wasn't even affected by the tornadoes. You know. Iran rejects Trump's ceasefire offer, and in real time, I've seen lightning strikes that were hitting the ground here in Reading. You know, actual lightning strikes hitting the ground on the day that they launched the war, and the next day. These strikes were very low to the ground. It's been interesting weather events, so, you know, of course I had the dream about the tornadoes, but like I said, I wasn't affected by the tornadoes in the dream. That's why I didn't even treat it as a nightmare, but I revamped it. It's like, well, that's talking about those that are going to be caught unawares. See, a lot of people are going to be caught unaware. The tornadoes are going to come and they ain't going to even know where they are. Well, isn't that what's already happening? When the USS Lincoln actually turned itself to flee, you know, because they did get hit by those hypersonic missiles, even though the U.S. News will not tell you the truth about that. That is, say that that's inaccurate. It did retreat. It was too close of a range of Iran, so it had to flee. They're already being chased off, and they wanted to try to call a ceasefire. You know, you bring them back to negotiating table, blah, 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 and it didn't work. After only 2 days of war, Trump reached out to Iran. Though Italy and one other country offering a ceasefire, the Iranians rejected it. Well, of course, they just killed Khomeini. Trump and the Israelis miscalculated big time. They thought by killing Khomeini and 40 other top decision makers, the Iranian regime would collapse. Instead, Iranians rallied around the flag. People hate it when their country is being attacked. So it had quite the opposite effect, just as others have already said. In a week's time, which we're not even at the end of the week, by the way, since they started it, the Americans and Israelis will run out of air defense. So in a week, they're saying they'll run out of air defense missiles to shoot down the incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. Then the Israeli cities such as Tel Aviv, Haifa will be sitting ducks for the Iranian missiles, and the Iranians have only used their old missiles and drones so far. They have not unveiled their latest missiles. They are just getting started, so why don't we get things started at the motherfucking show tonight? War criminal Netanyahu will go begging to Trump again to stop the war, but I'm sure the Iranians will agree this time. Let's see where I was. Yeah. But I'm sure the Iranians will not agree this time. In other words, Pandora's box is open. So, here's the accurate figures, and this is coming from the IRGC themselves. 650 casualties for U.S. military in 2 days as Iran missiles forced aircraft carrier to flee. So there you have it. Those are the accurate figures of what's going on. Do you think the U.S. News, CNN, or Fox News is actually reporting the actual numbers? Fuck no! They're just making it, they're downplaying everything, and that goes into the first video since they launched this thing, that they're going to downplay it. They're going to keep downplaying it. They are not going to tell the people, but eventually word is going to get out that a lot more were killed in this war. In the first 2 days of the war, 650 American terrorists were killed and wounded. Brigadier General stated on Tuesday. He emphasized that it was natural for the U.S. military to deny or conceal the casualties, which of course, nevertheless, Iranian intelligence as well as all field reports confirmed the toll. These are confirmed kills. He said the Iranian strikes, which include missile and drone attacks against U.S. naval assets and military headquarters in Bahrain, forced the USS Lincoln aircraft carrier to flee towards southern Indian Ocean. He highlighted the Iranian forces have also managed to inflict heavy losses on U.S. military facilities in the Persian Gulf region. Spokesman said Iranian missiles and drones had repeatedly hit the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain. And Bahrain is one of the heaviest hit so far in retaliatory. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps claims demolition of U.S. airbase in Bahrain. And this is all coming on March 3rd. The third day of the month, because on February 28th is when they launched their war of terror. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps destroyed the command building and headquarters of the U.S. Air Base in Bahrain. According to the Guard, its naval forces carried out the 14th wave of the Honest Promise 4 operation targeting the U.S. base in the Sheikh Isa area, Bahrain. The attack, they said, was carried out on Tuesday morning using drones and missiles. The Guard added that 20 drones and 3 missiles hit the intended targets, destroying the command building and headquarters of the U.S. Air Base and setting fire to its field tanks. Iran news agency Fars released footage showing the attack on U.S. bases in Bahrain using heavy Iranian missiles, so they already have video footage of that. I don't think I have it, but nonetheless, though, news is coming out every day. So, you got this going on as well. So we'll play this. I mean, everything is just ongoing, and I'm still behind. Okay, by the time you watch this video, I'm already behind, by the way. So that's just how fast things are coming out. It's not going according to plan.
Iranian retaliation should be against Benjamin Netanyahu himself and also against the Knesset.
That's another rumor.
This is one of the reasons I think that
that they might have actually hit
officers
Netanyahu's residency.
That they will be surprised
his office
by the Iranian retaliation. But let me tell you this very important strategic points. First of all, up to last night, I was insisting that there is no benefit for anybody to go into war unless we can see when they take out the Fifth Fleet from the Persian Gulf, then it's a big sign that there is a war. Iranian retaliation should be against Benjamin Netanyahu himself and also against the Knesset. This is
and like everything else, though, there's rumor going around that they did actually hit his office. So I don't know if that's confirmed yet. It's not on press TV as of yet, about that. But that's just the sentiment, is that they need to go after King Baby himself. I mean, you kill a leader. I mean, it's only natural that you kill their leader as well. 2 drones hit U.S. Embassy in Saudi capital. 2 drones hit the embassy in the Saudi capital overnight on Tuesday, sparkling a small fire and doing damage to the building. This is what actually got hit in Saudi Arabia. They did not set fire to any oil fields. This is a tactic. Remember, they tried to do the same thing with Saddam Hussein, right? Saying that Saddam Hussein set the Kuwait oil fields on fire. These were done on purpose to give you the idea that, because I remember George Bush saying that it was a scorched earth policy, right? Iran already had stated that they had no need to do such things, but they're trying to sell it to the people that Iran set the Saudi oil fields on fire. An attack by 2 drones early Tuesday on the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh sparked a small fire, Saudi Defense Ministry spokesman said in a statement. While Iran pressed on with retaliatory strikes against the Gulf, the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was attacked by 2 drones according to initial assessments. The attack resulted in limited fire and minor material damage to the building, so I don't think there's really any casualties on this. In the aftermath, the U.S. Embassy issued shelter-in-place notifications for Jeddah, Riyadh, and Bahrain, and limited non-essential travel to any military installations in the region. And they're telling anybody that's in, the West Asia region to come home, to evacuate, to get out of there, because of this war. And they were doing that before. Again, U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia hit as Israeli troops enter into Lebanon. Yeah, the Israelis have entered into Lebanon as well. And then you got this report as well. In Indonesia to import more oil from U.S. after U.S.-Israeli war in West Asia. Indonesia will boost crude oil imports from the U.S. to offset disrupted supplies from West Asia as the U.S.-Israeli war in the region escalates. So like everything else, though, we know the Strait of Hormuz is pretty much it's a close, it's a done deal, because anybody within that could be shut down in this war. As the Gulf War continues, Trump vowing to hit back after a U.S. Embassy strike. U.S. President Trump said the U.S. continues to carry out large-scale combat operations against Iran, while he added that Iran could have missiles capable of reaching America soon, had refused to cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons. Well, it refused to, the same rhetoric he always has. The U.S. is said to be preparing for a pickup in attacks against Iran during the next 24 hours, according to senior unnamed officials cited at CNN. So, like everything else, though, this is also going to hurt the economy. So, like everything else, though, U.S. stocks were choppy on Monday, while energy prices and gold were bid with T-notes, bear flattering, and the dollar firmer in response to the U.S.-Iran conflict. Over the weekend, the U.S. struck Iran, basically, and he has tariffs on everything, so nobody's really dealing with America like they think. U.S. President Trump's administration reportedly lost a push to delay the tariff refund fight. Yeah, exactly. These people are owed money. They had to pay the tariffs, and Congress had already turned down his tariffs, and he has to repay that. Donald Trump owes a lot of money. Most people are going to take the Donald on that one. The tariffs are there to stay because he's just going to, have new tariffs, as they said that the other ones were unconstitutional. So he has new tariffs already. You see, like everything else, though, he's already destroyed the economy. This is all being done on purpose. All manufactured on purpose. And here we go. There's a lot of damage happened to the Israeli state, but most people can't report from the Israeli state except approved by the Israeli government. So they're going to downplay what's really happened there. But lots of places are leveled. Bahrain is totally leveled, by the way. The U.S. base over there, they're going to downplay that. They're not even going to tell you that. Deadly Iranian missile attack hits west of occupied Jerusalem. Iran has escalated attacks against Israeli state and U.S. bases in the Gulf in the hours following the assassination of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. And that was actually published on March 1st. There's a lot more, obviously, happening. 9 Israeli terrorists were killed and nearly 30 others injured on the 1st of March in an Iranian ballistic missile strike against Beit Shemesh settlement west of the occupied city. This is already old. The damages are even worse. Yeah, again, No more oil tankers for Europe. Iran is attacking the oil tankers now. And that's just it, though, is that you see it's disrupted all supply. And that's what world alternative media is getting into. I'll play that in just a second, but you can see that all hell's already breaking loose in just a few days, and there's no way Russia's going to allow it to fall. Now, like everything else, though, ground troops are being announced, so that explains Magog coming down, as this ground war will begin not too far from now. Because Russia's going to be drawn into the war. The lethal flux is going to draw them out. It's going to draw Babylon into the war. That's already happened. So guess what? Russia's going to get involved, as it goes into in this chapter. The MOTB will still come out because, of course, that's going to tank the economy worldwide. And they'll come up with a solution in the midst of the war. See, World War III and the MOTB are coincidentally together, as it's looking like here, that, every day there's new footage. So this war is continuous, and we're all out of chaos, right? As the war continues. I don't think there's going to be a ceasefire this time. I really just, Apostle Tahar ain't seeing it. I'm not seeing it. And I think most brothers here at Great Millstone aren't seeing it. And like I said, I'm not on YouTube as a date because I can't even get the video up. I'll try with this one, but the previous video was not on YouTube. My previous video was not on YouTube. If you're watching me on YouTube, say I did get this through. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 4. And I will turn you around and put hooks into your jaws and bring you out, and all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them magnificently clothed in full armor. A great horde with buckler and shield, all of them wielding swords. Persia, Cush, and Put, a.k.a. Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, North Africa, with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Okay, we already know this, that Russia's going to protect all those areas, going to safeguard them, because everybody's going to be drawn into this war. The least the flock shall draw them out. So guess what? Russia's going to have to come to their defenses because the Israeli state is going to be attacking all these places. I mean, the Israeli state has already had the U.S. proxies attacking Ethiopia, aka Sudan and Somalia. All those are there. And definitely, they had everything to do with Libya being tumbled, and the government being wiped out. Well, guess what, though? They're planning even more against Libya. So they're going to draw everybody into this war. Gomer and all its troops, back to Gomer from the remote parts of the north and all its troops, many people with you. You, Gog, be prepared, prepare yourself, you and all your hordes that are assembled around you, and be at guard, and look out for them. So, like everything else, though, it's going to happen. That Russia's going to get more and more involved. You will go up against them, you will come like a storm, you will be like a cloud covering the land, you and all your troops, many people with you. So, Russia's going to be coming in, especially during this ground war. I believe the ground war is what triggers this more than anything else. And guess what? Gomer's going to be there too. Turkey and all its troops. Right now, the ground war hasn't started, but the ground war will come. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, it will come about on that day, that thoughts will come into your mind, you will devise a plan. And you will say, I will go up against the open country, I will come against those who are at rest and peaceful, who live securely, all of them living without walls and having neither bars nor gates. To take spoil and seize plunder, to turn your hand against the ruins which are now inhabited, and against the people who are gathered from the nations, who have acquired cattle and goods, who live at the center of the world. And like everything else, though, they're going to be taking spoils. They're going to be destroying the Zionist entity. And of course, that's just right as it eventually moves into the final showdown of World War III. I mean, World War III, they already said it was already here. So, I take it as it is when all sides are saying that World War III has already begun. But the nuclear destruction will not come until the MOTB is mandated, but it will come. And you will go up against Israeli state like a cloud to cover the land. In the last days it will come about that I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I show myself holy through you before their eyes, O God. Again, coming against the Israeli state. And then Russia and all its forces will be wiped out by Yahushua and the angels. In the midst of World War III. We're not too far from this, because they're already talking about ground war on just these series of operations, which I believe that it's official. World War III has been declared, as you're hearing it from the declaration from both sides of it. That World War III has already started. Now, of course, King Bibi and Trump are going to downplay that, but that they always downplay everything. And like everything else, though, it being World War III, the global economic collapse is achieved, and that will usher in the MOTB mandates. So here we go. Final video. World War III, Iran could destroy the global economy as attacks escalate. Shalom, Barak the Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abababal. Brakatum, Jehovah elect. Just going to play this out and end this.
Hey everybody, Josh Singleton of World Alternative Media here, and we're joined once again by Mark Gonzalez over at First National Bullion. As many of you know, we're basically entering into like a World War III scenario here with the Ayatollah Khamenei being killed by the U.S. and Israel, and of course this has led to massive retaliation in the region that affects more than just the geopolitical.
Here we go, yo.
It also
Here we go, yo. So what? So what's the scenario?
This is something that we're witnessing history right now. We're witnessing now France. Macron talking about getting new nuclear warheads made as he joins alongside Germany into the war against Iran. We have Donald Trump saying that he's not ruling out sending troops into Iran if necessary. Tells a Post, I don't care about polling. Well, yeah, you're not running again, most likely. We have Trump on Iran saying here, we project 4 to 5 weeks, but we have the capability to go far longer than that. We'll do whatever it takes. I heard that with Iraq. We have, again, Trump saying that we haven't even started in Iran. The big one is coming soon. Marco Rubio is echoing those sentiments now, saying the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth said that the U.S. is ready for possible Iranian sleeper cell attacks on U.S. soil. So that's
false flag in the making
when it comes to potentially.
They're already trying it, by the way.
Meanwhile, like I said, the economy. Now, who is doing the best on this? Weirdly, the dollar and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange in the face of this, because temporarily it looks real nice for who benefits, right? But this is going to snowball into something much, much bigger, because as the Tel Aviv stock market is closing on at an all-time high, we also have the United Arab Emirates, which is an absolute powerhouse in the global economy, which recently made deals with the U.S., by the way, announcing the closure of its stock markets on Monday and Tuesday. Now, that is absolutely massive, as we, of course, have seen Dubai get hit by drones, including the Burj Al Arab, an iconic landmark in Dubai. But of course, obviously, there is some fear mongering around that. A lot of people are going to dinner, walking down the street. It seems fine. Nonetheless, this could snowball into something much bigger, and that has a profound effect on their country. Not to mention that we just saw the biggest oil refinery in the world in Saudi Arabia get bombed and explode. So again, we're going to see
that's the false flag that they got.
China is rushing to get gold right now. We're seeing a massive move on gold in China with really far above average pricing per ounce of gold. So that is big news as well. And of course, in places like Dubai, they're seeing a severely curbed gold shipment system. Like, they're having a hard time getting their hands on gold, and gold is everywhere in Dubai. So this is absolutely massive news, my friends. China is boosting its gold to $375 billion as U.S.-Iran tensions escalate. There's just so much happening all at once. And it's just beginning. I mean, when Trump says it's just a beginning, I kind of believe him. Remember a half a year ago, feels like a couple years ago, when we saw the initial attacks on Iran, and everyone said, oh, you're blackpilling, you're so negative when you say that this isn't over. Because everyone was saying, oh, that's crazy. No, Trump just ended it. He's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize. This is amazing. The Iran war is over. We knew at the time, reporting here at World Alternative Media, that was nonsense. And here we are. And it's about to snowball, and it has a profound effect on the economy and your money. And all the same shows why it's so important to not be waiting until it's too late to have things like gold and silver. As Iran's internet's down, they can't even do anything with their digital banking system, which they're trying to force the world into right now. That puts us all at a standstill. We're going to get into this with Mark and more today. Please forgive and bear with me the long intro here, but there's just so much happening. But it has to be said, there's just so much happening. This is one of the craziest weeks I think I've ever seen in my life. This just came out off the cusp 1 week ago of a cartel war in Mexico, so it's just been one thing after the other. But with this Iran war situation, Mark, how does this affect gold and silver? Why is it so important to get on this? What does it look like from, standing back, zooming out, and seeing how this plays out? What does it look like to you?
Okay, well, obviously, World War III appears to be upon us. So you're going to have increased gold and silver prices according to that, just in traditional sense. That's how this is going to work. But if you look at it from what you and I talked about in previous videos of what type of occurrence is it going to be to really usher in this next phase of digital currency, it looks like the first one to be had is going to be disrupting the world as a whole militarily, be it what was really, in my opinion, optics here in Mexico, but not the last time it's going to happen. The world has now changed, and it's going to happen everywhere, right? But now we have this war with Iran. Iran is going after other countries. You have European countries that are wanting to start it. It's World War III. This is going to accelerate everything that we've already talked about. Oil is going to go up. Printing press is going to go up. The cost of goods and services are going to go up. My guess is personal lending is going to be reduced. So you're going to probably have reduced personal lending. You're going to have increased inflation that you got to cover without the ability to do it. And at some point, gold and silver. Now, keep in mind, I'm not really looking at technicals even though you can kind of see what maybe you're looking at a little bit longer term of gold and silver actually being the money that's going to restart this system. So here we are at that point in time. Gold and silver have a little bit of a delayed fuse with what has been happening in the world, but don't turn your back on it because, we saw one hell of a run up that started at the beginning of December. That run is not over, right?
Well, Mark, I just want to throw in here, people were freaking out a couple weeks ago when we saw one of the largest dips in gold and silver in history since the 80s. People went, oh, this is terrible, yet it's still like 20 times, well, not 20 times, but it's like 5 to 10 times higher than it was a year earlier anyway. And in the face of that, people said, oh, well, I don't want to get in when it's low like that. And now we're seeing that leg up again because in a time of crisis, people buy gold and silver. And this has been going on since ancient Rome.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that
Keep in mind, that was the fall of the old Roman system.
This site numerous times. I've been saying this to clients. The ascension of gold and silver,
New Rome, Esau, Edom,
dollar terms of the current fiat,
it's being destroyed on purpose.
To go to the digital one, as is and always will be until point of conversion, a managed event.
A managed event. That's what's coming. That'll usher in the MOTB. Shalom.